The signal. Amy Parker ran her fingers through her medical supplies one final time as the USS Meridian drifted through the vast darkness surrounding Kepler 442b. 3 years she'd been doing this job, patching up crew members after dangerous missions. Usually nothing too serious, cuts from jagged metal, burns from malfunctioning equipment, the occasional broken bone from a clumsy fall in low gravity. The Meridian wasn't built for combat. It carried scientists, engineers, and survey teams whose job was mapping unexplored star systems and searching for worlds where humanity might someday flourish. Amy preferred this work to her previous assignment at the military hospital on Earth. Out here, she helped people push the boundaries of human knowledge instead of repairing soldiers shattered by endless wars. All senior staff to the bridge, Captain Ryan Mitchell's voice crackled through the ship's communication system. Amy grabbed her emergency medical kit and left the sterile quiet of the medical bay. The corridors hummed with nervous energy as crew members hurried past, their faces tight with concern. Something important was happening. The bridge buzzed with activity when Amy arrived. Captain Mitchell stood before the main display screen, his weathered face grim. Commander Lisa Grant, the security chief, stood at his right shoulder while Lieutenant Ben Hayes worked frantically at the communications console. "We've detected a signal," Captain Mitchell announced once all department heads had gathered. "It's not from any human vessel or automated probe we've sent out." Amy studied the display showing rhythmic pulses of light emanating from somewhere near the system's fourth planet. The pattern repeated every few minutes, but she couldn't decipher any meaning in the sequence. Apparently, neither could anyone else. "Could be a distress call," suggested Lieutenant Hayes, wiping sweat from his forehead despite the cool bridge temperature. "Or a warning," Commander Grant added darkly. She always expected the worst-case scenario, which had probably saved their lives more than once during their deep space missions. "Or a trap," she continued, her hand instinctively moving toward her sidearm. Captain Mitchell studied the alien signal for several long moments before making his decision. "We investigate, but we stay prepared for immediate retreat if the situation goes bad." The Meridian adjusted course toward the signal source. Amy felt her stomach clench with a mixture of anxiety and excitement. In 3 years of exploring the outer reaches of human space, they discovered plenty of dead worlds and ancient ruins, but never encountered anything alive and actively transmitting. This could be humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. 2 hours later, they found the source. The alien vessel hung motionless near the fourth planet, its dark hull gleaming like polished obsidian against the star field. It was enormous, easily twice the Meridian size, with flowing curves and angular protrusions that seemed to hurt the eyes when stared at too long. Nothing in human design philosophy resembled this ship's unsettling architecture. "They're scanning us," Ben reported, his voice tight with fear. "Really deep scans. They're examining everything, our hull composition, internal systems, even individual crew members." The alien ship moved toward them with impossible speed, crossing the distance between the vessels in seconds rather than the minutes it should have taken. "Shields up. All stop," Captain Mitchell barked. Their defensive screens activated, but something passed right through them as if they didn't exist. An invisible force seized the Meridian and began drawing it toward the alien vessel. The lights flickered as unknown energy coursed through their systems. Amy felt a peculiar tingling sensation, like thousands of tiny needles dancing across her skin. "They're interfacing with our computers," the chief engineer shouted from his station. "I can't prevent it." The bridge plunged into darkness except for emergency lighting. Then new illumination appeared, harsh blue-white beams streaming from the alien ship. Amy squinted against the blinding radiance that filled her vision completely. When the light faded, everything had changed. The hunters. Amy found herself standing in a vast metallic chamber alongside the rest of the senior staff. They were no longer aboard the Meridian. The walls stretched impossibly high, constructed from some dark material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The air carried a sharp, acrid smell like burning copper mixed with something organic that made her nose burn. Surrounding them were creatures that walked upright like humans, but the similarities ended there. Their skin resembled green-black leather, rough and scaled, while unblinking yellow eyes studied the captives with cold intelligence. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with elongated arms ending in clawed hands that looked more like weapons than tools for manipulation. One of the aliens stepped forward. When it spoke, the words emerged in perfect English, though its voice sounded like grinding stone. "I am War Master Kethvar of the Vorak Collective. You are now subjects for our research." Captain Mitchell stepped forward, trying to maintain command authority despite their desperate situation. "I'm Captain Mitchell of the human vessel Meridian. We're explorers, not soldiers. We mean no harm to your people." The alien called Kethvar made a harsh sound that might have been laughter. "Harm? You could not harm us even if you tried. Look at you, small, weak, soft creatures. We have studied many species across the galaxy. All claim to be peaceful when captured. What kind of research?" Commander Grant demanded, her military training keeping her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Survival research. Combat research. We test how different species react when faced with imminent death. Most die quickly. Some endure longer. A few provide surprises." Kethvar's yellow eyes examined each human in turn. "We shall discover which category you represent." Other Vorak moved forward carrying strange devices that hummed with barely contained energy. They began separating the humans into 2 groups. Captain Mitchell, Commander Grant, and the other senior officers were pushed toward one exit while Amy found herself alone, facing a different direction. "Wait," she called out desperately. "I'm just a medic. I don't know anything about fighting or survival tactics. I fix people when they get hurt." Kethvar studied her for a long moment, his predatory gaze taking in her smaller frame and medical insignia. "Yes, we can observe you are weak, small, built for maintenance work rather than battle. This makes you perfect for our special experiment." "What experiment?" "We have created the perfect predator, a creature designed to hunt and eliminate the strongest warriors in the galaxy. Most subjects survive only minutes in its presence. You will help us understand how quickly pure weakness dies when confronted with pure strength." Ice formed in Amy's stomach. "You're going to feed me to some kind of monster." "The Shadowclaw is not a monster. It is art, science, evolution perfected through our biotechnology." Kethvar gestured to his soldiers. "Take her to the arena. Let us observe how long human frailty can survive against Vorak perfection." The alien seized Amy's arms with grips like steel vices and dragged her toward a different corridor than her crewmates. She struggled futilely against their superior strength. Behind her, she heard Captain Mitchell shouting her name, demanding they release her, but the heavy door slammed shut between them. Amy was pulled down a long, dimly lit corridor toward whatever nightmare the Vorak had prepared. She was just a medic who wanted to help people explore the universe. Now she was going to die alone, far from Earth, torn apart by some engineered killing machine for alien entertainment. The corridor terminated at another massive door. Beyond it, Amy could hear something moving in the darkness, something large, something that breathed with the patience of an apex predator. The Vorak shoved her forward. The door sealed behind her with a sound like a tomb closing. Amy stepped into the arena and immediately understood why the aliens called it a test of survival. The arena. The arena was enormous, at least 200 feet across with walls that stretched up so high the ceiling disappeared into shadow. Strange lights moved across the upper reaches like artificial stars, casting shifting patterns that made the space feel alive and predatory. The floor changed every few yards in a bewildering patchwork. Rocky terrain gave way to thick grassland, then sandy patches, then areas littered with twisted metal debris. It was as if someone had taken fragments from different worlds and assembled them into a single killing ground. Amy realized the Vorak could probably reshape the environment at will, making their tests even more challenging for whatever creatures they threw in here. She clutched her medical kit against her chest, the only possession they'd allowed her to keep. Inside were bandages, pain medications, a small diagnostic scanner, and basic surgical instruments. Not exactly weapons designed to fight engineered predators. Amy found shelter behind a cluster of large rocks and tried to think rationally. Her hands trembled as she checked her supplies again. The scanner showed her vital signs: heart rate dangerously elevated, blood pressure climbing, stress hormones flooding her system. Her body was preparing for fight or flight response, but there was nowhere to run and nothing she could realistically fight. But being terrified wasn't the same as being helpless. Amy had dealt with plenty of dangerous situations during her 3 years as a ship's medic. She'd pulled injured crew members from burning engine compartments and treated people hurt in decompression accidents. Fear was a normal response to danger. Panic would get her killed. She forced herself to breathe slowly and observe her environment more carefully. The Vorak were watching from somewhere above, probably behind those moving lights. They expected her to run around screaming until their monster caught her, typical prey behavior. Amy wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. A low sound echoed through the arena, like metal scraping against stone. Amy pressed herself deeper behind the rocks and listened intently. The sound came again, closer this time. Something was moving out there with her. The Shadowclaw emerged from what had appeared to be solid ground. One moment Amy was staring at an empty patch of dark soil, the next, something massive rose up from a concealed tunnel. The creature exceeded everything the Vorak had promised. It stood 8 feet tall on powerful legs ending in claws the size of dinner plates. Its body was covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light, making it difficult to see clearly even when it was directly in front of her. Long arms reached almost to the ground, terminating in hands that were more weapons than tools. But it was the eyes that made Amy's blood freeze. Yellow and bright, they moved across the arena with intelligent purpose. This wasn't some mindless beast that attacked anything moving. The Shadowclaw was a hunter that studied its prey before striking. The creature's head turned toward Amy's hiding spot. She held perfectly still, not daring to breathe. Could it smell her? Hear her heartbeat? Detect her body heat? The Shadowclaw took a step in her direction, then stopped. Its head tilted to one side as if listening to something Amy couldn't perceive. After a long moment, it turned away and moved toward a different section of the arena. Amy released her breath very slowly. The creature hadn't found her yet, but she knew it would eventually. She needed to learn everything possible about it before that happened. Moving carefully from rock to rock, Amy followed the Shadowclaw at what she hoped was a safe distance. Her medical training automatically kicked in. She began observing the creature the same way she would examine a patient. The Shadowclaw moved with a slight limp. Its right shoulder sat lower than its left, and it favored turning in one direction. Old injuries, Amy realized. Someone or something had hurt this creature before, and the damage had never properly healed. As she watched, Amy noticed other details. The creature's breathing wasn't steady. Sometimes it would pause and pant as if experiencing pain. The scales along its left flank were discolored, possibly indicating internal damage. This perfect predator was wounded, perhaps even suffering. Part 4, The Truth. Amy's medical scanner confirmed what her eyes had suspected. From 30 feet away, she could detect the Shadowclaw's irregular heartbeat, elevated stress hormones, and signs of chronic pain. This creature wasn't a perfect killing machine, it was a tortured victim. The revelation changed everything. Instead of running, Amy made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone watching from above. She stepped out from behind the rocks and walked slowly toward the Shadowclaw, her hands visible and empty except for the medical kit. The creature spun toward her with lightning speed, claws extended, yellow eyes blazing with predatory instinct. But Amy didn't run. She sat down on the arena floor and opened her medical kit calmly, as if she were in her own sick bay rather than facing certain death. "I can see you're hurt," she said quietly, not sure if the creature could understand human speech but hoping her tone would convey peaceful intent. "I'm a doctor. I help injured beings feel better. The Shadowclaw hesitated, its massive head tilting in confusion. In all its battles against warriors and soldiers, no prey had ever sat down and offered medical assistance. Amy pulled out her scanner and showed it to the creature. This tells me where the pain is coming from. You have internal bleeding in your torso, damaged neural pathways in your right shoulder, and what looks like infected wounds that never healed properly. The creature made a low rumbling sound, not quite a growl, but not entirely threatening either. It was listening. The Vorak did this to you, didn't they? Amy continued, her voice filled with the same compassion she'd shown countless injured crew members. They created you to be their perfect weapon, but they never bothered to treat your injuries between fights. You're not a monster, you're a patient who needs help. Slowly, carefully, Amy stood up and took a step closer. The Shadowclaw could have killed her instantly, but something in the creature's posture had changed. The aggressive stance softened slightly. My name is Amy. I've spent my whole career helping people who are hurt and scared. Will you let me help you? The Shadowclaw made another sound, this one almost plaintive. It extended one massive clawed hand toward Amy, not in attack but in a gesture that seemed almost hopeful. Amy approached the creature and gently examined the scarred scales along its flank. Up close, she could see the poor healing, the signs of repeated trauma, the evidence of a life spent in constant pain for someone else's entertainment. Those bastards, she whispered, her anger at the Vorak burning hot in her chest. They've been torturing you for how long? Years? The Shadowclaw rumbled again, and Amy could have sworn she heard sadness in the sound. Above them, she knew the Vorak were watching in confusion. This wasn't how their survival test was supposed to go. Their perfect predator was supposed to tear the weak human apart within minutes, not accept medical treatment from her. Amy began working on the creature's wounds with supplies from her kit. It wasn't a perfect solution, she'd need proper surgical equipment to fully repair the damage, but she could ease the pain and start the healing process. As she worked, the Shadowclaw gradually relaxed. For the first time in its tortured existence, someone was touching it with gentle, healing intent rather than causing more harm. We're going to get out of here, Amy told her unlikely patient. Both of us. But first, we need to show these alien researchers something they've never seen before. The Shadowclaw's yellow eyes met hers, and Amy saw intelligence there, not just predatory cunning, but awareness, understanding, and something that might have been gratitude. The perfect predator had found something the Vorak never expected, compassion. And that was about to change everything. The escape. The arena fell silent as Amy finished treating the Shadowclaw's most serious wounds. Above them, she could sense the Vorak's confusion and growing alarm. Their perfect experiment had gone completely wrong. Can you understand me? Amy asked the creature softly. I think you can. You're intelligent, aren't you? They made you smart enough to hunt, but they never considered what that intelligence might choose to do. The Shadowclaw nodded slowly, its massive head moving with deliberate intent. When it spoke, the voice was rough from disuse but unmistakably articulate. Understand, yes. Never had choice before. Amy's heart broke for this tortured being. Well, you have a choice now. We can work together to get out of here, or we can both die in this arena. What do you want to do? The creature's yellow eyes blazed with something that had nothing to do with predatory instinct. It was determination. Free. Want to be free. High above them, panels began sliding open in the arena walls. Amy could see Vorak soldiers preparing to intervene, probably realizing their experiment had become something far more dangerous than they'd intended. They're coming, Amy warned. Can you get us out of here? The Shadowclaw rose to its full height, and for the first time, Amy saw it as it truly was, not a monster, but a magnificent being driven by pain and captivity to violence. Now, treated with kindness and respect, it was choosing a different path. Know every tunnel. Every weakness. They think Cage contains me. Cage contains them. The creature moved toward a section of the arena floor that looked identical to every other section. Its claws scraped against what appeared to be solid ground, but Amy heard the hollow sound of metal beneath. Hidden passages everywhere. They never think prey might become predator. With tremendous strength, the Shadowclaw tore open a concealed hatch. Beyond was a narrow tunnel that stretched into darkness. "Can you find my friends?" Amy asked. "The other humans they captured?" "Yes." "Detention level." "This way." They moved through the hidden passages within the Vorak ship structure. The Shadowclaw led with confidence, its large frame navigating the tight spaces with surprising grace. Amy followed, her medical kit bouncing against her hip. They emerged in a corridor lined with holding cells. Amy could see Captain Mitchell and the other crew members imprisoned behind energy barriers. The Vorak guard didn't even have time to sound an alarm before the Shadowclaw disabled him with surgical precision, enough force to incapacitate, but not kill. "Amy!" Captain Mitchell called out as she worked to free them. "How did you dash?" "I'll explain later," Amy said, deactivating the cell locks with the guard's access device. "Right now we need to get to our ship and get out of here." The Shadowclaw had been listening to their conversation with growing interest. When the crew was free, it spoke again. "Ship is this way. But guards will come. Many guards. Can you help us fight them?" Commander Grant asked. The creature looked at Amy, who nodded encouragingly. "Only if you want to. The choice is yours. Choose to help. Choose to be, friend." What followed was less a battle and more a tactical withdrawal. The Shadowclaw's knowledge of the ship's layout, combined with its formidable abilities, allowed them to avoid most confrontations while moving toward the docking bay where the Meridian waited. When they reached their ship, Amy turned to the creature that had saved them all. "Come with us," she offered. "You don't have to stay here. You can be free." The Shadowclaw considered this, its yellow eyes reflecting the stars visible through the docking bay's transparent barriers. "Free, yes. But not running. Others here. Others like me. Need help too." Amy understood. The creature wasn't just seeking its own freedom, it was choosing to liberate others who had suffered as it had. "Then we'll help you free them," Captain Mitchell said firmly. "All of them." The Shadowclaw's expression might have been a smile. "Good. Time to teach Vorak what happens when experiment becomes teacher." As the Meridian prepared to undock, Amy watched the Shadowclaw coordinating with other freed experimental subjects throughout the Vorak ship. The aliens who had thought themselves superior researchers were about to learn a harsh lesson about the consequences of cruelty. But that was a story for another day. For now, Amy was content knowing that sometimes the weakest person in the room, a simple medic with a medical kit, could change the course of an entire galaxy through nothing more than compassion and the courage to treat others with dignity. The Vorak had created the perfect predator. But Amy had discovered something even more powerful, the perfect healer. The end.